you so much for the entire group for inviting me here today. I know that I'm standing in for Dr. Anna Marie Trester, who's already given you such a solid start in thinking about ways that you can position yourself as a person who may be curious about or positioning yourself for a career in business, government, nonprofit, or tech. So I'm sure all of you in the audience represent many different areas of linguistics and perhaps have different ideas about where you want to learn more about potential career journeys. So I'm here to, welcome that discussion, provide some of my own experience, and give you some actual strategies that you can take so that you can learn and research, apply your linguistic skills in researching to figure out next steps in your career journey. So today we're going to talk about how to use LinkedIn. And I'm going to be talking through a number of LinkedIn profiles and showing you ways that you can optimize your own profile, as well as ways that you can reach out to others, build your network, but also research. Consider LinkedIn as the biggest database of resumes and language about careers ever compiled. This is a really rich source to learn about ways that you can use language patterns and keywords. I think you've learned about keywords with Dr. Trester that will help you reach certain audiences that you might want to connect with. So we'll talk through some profiles. I have very few slides to start out with, but that will serve as a bit of a guide to get us started. And as Nevena said, I do welcome people to put questions in the chat as we go along. I may or may not see those, so I'll rely on my wonderful convener to interrupt me and let me know when there's a particularly opportune question. I want to hear from you. I want to hear the things that you're interested in learning about, whether it's positions in industry, in government, in media, in technology. And we can talk through ways that you can learn more about these areas and ways that linguists can and do contribute to those areas. So with that, I am going to attempt to share my screen again, and I will try to show my slideshow. And at this point, let's see, I believe I can, well, you're seeing my slides. So again, my name is Alex Johnston, and currently I'm an associate professor of the practice at Georgetown University, which is a type of academic position which recognizes that people have some outside the academy experience in different areas of work. And I also currently direct our master's programs, and I have the very unusual position for a linguist of directing career management for our department. So that's very unique in the US to have that position in a linguistics program. But as a faculty member, I take that very seriously, and I'm very, very dedicated to helping our 100 linguistics majors in the undergraduate program, as well as our 100 plus graduate students in our graduate program, figure out next steps in their career. So these are different ways that I identify, and this will relate later to my profile, which I will share with you, my LinkedIn profile. So I am a sociolinguist, and I use critical discourse analysis to analyze high-stakes institutional gatekeeping encounters, especially those between immigration officers and people who are seeking visas. In particular, I'm interested in how officers make decisions about who receives a permanent residency visa in the United States, also known as a green card. So I study those encounters, looking at the actual interviews between immigration officers and the applicants. And I also study and teach intercultural communication at Georgetown. And then currently, as part of my faculty portfolio, I have a class called Career Management for Linguists, and I've taught that for the past 7 years. And this is a 3-credit semester-long course for linguistics graduate students at Georgetown. And it covers all aspects of career management, starting with how to, figure out your own skills, values, and interests, leading into how to look for positions and identify careers of interest using LinkedIn and using other tools, and how to build your network. That's something you'll be talking about with Dr. Truster next time. How to build relationships and manage those relationships. And it goes into then preparing documents of job seeking genre documents, like your resume, your cover letters, your curated stories of accomplishments and experiences, going all the way through to interviewing. We do mock interviews, and then how to negotiate for a job and a benefits package. So it's a kind of full service chronological view of career management for life. And then finally, I'm a talent development consultant, and I've had my own business for actually about 20 years now, serving as a consultant for large global industry organizations. And I'm typically hired to deliver modules in intercultural communication, relationship management, leadership development, and any other type of work where I can hide and bring out linguistics knowledge, without calling it linguistics necessarily. So with all of those different client groups, from government to nonprofit to higher ed, I have used these career management methods and built a network that has helped in my job in teaching career management. So I do love using LinkedIn, and I hope by the end of this, you might learn to see its value and actually be excited about using it. So for today, we're going to talk about, do I have to do this? Yes, actually. So we're just going to start from that. And how can you set up your profile to be most optimal? How can you use LinkedIn to build relationships in an authentic way? And then we're going to just dive in to LinkedIn and talk through some profiles and look through ways to search for people and look for ways to search for language and patterns of language that you can adopt and adapt for your own profile. So we're going to try to answer the question, how can I use LinkedIn for research and career discernment? And how can I apply some rapid discourse analysis on the biggest corpus of resumes the world has ever seen? So we'll be getting into that. But first, I want to kind of present my perspective on using LinkedIn in an authentic way, because I often get the question, isn't LinkedIn just, Facebook for professionals, or very superficial, or it's all about me and the brilliant thing I just did that I'm promoting? Yeah, we do see that on LinkedIn. We do see people who are talking about, their latest, proud to say I just accomplished such and such. But it's also a way to really manage relationships and keep them going. So I wanted to present some tips for that, so that we can keep in mind that we're going to use the platform in an authentic way, and not just in a superficial manner to seemingly, be a tall poppy and brag about the recent accomplishments. It's also a way to really build a supportive circle of people. So once you've sent out the invitation, here are some ideas for future touch points or future ways to interact with your new contacts in LinkedIn. So for example, one way to interact is to read a post or read a comment that your new contact has posted and react to it or comment on it in an authentic way, not necessarily using the Gen AI suggestions that say, oh, congrats, so-and-so, but reading and really trying to react sincerely to what they're saying and working with the content that your new connection has put out. So avoid the Gen AI because it's really obvious when people use it. Let them know if you took action on something that your contact or your connection has posted about in the past. Let them know that you did something they recommended and it worked out. Tell them about it in a comment or in a one-to-one LinkedIn message and express some gratitude for that. People really like to receive sincere expressions of gratitude. So it's a nice way to say to someone that, what you wrote about, the post that you wrote about, the podcast you were on, that gave me an idea to try such and such in my own life. And it helped. Thank you for doing that. It's so rare that people reach out with expressions of thanks that you'll be remembered in a really positive way. You could also tell people that you connected with someone in their network, or somehow that person served as a bridge person for you. So when I say bridge person, it just simply means that somebody is connecting you with a member of their network, somebody they know. So let them know how that new connection was helpful for you, and include a detail or two. Like, details are what make your messages and your interactions, stand out as being non-generic. And tell them how you'll move forward. And again, deliver some thanks. People like it. And whenever you experience a milestone, it may be nice to alert certain people that, say, you graduated or you got your first article published. Tell them about it. I love to hear, directly when former students have, started a new job in a new place, or, something happened personally, or they've experienced some kind of success. If they reach out and let me know about that, I really love to hear it. So this is also very useful if you've ever, moved to a different country or a different city. If you alert your network that you've done so, it kind of keeps people top of mind, keeps you top of mind in your network's collective mind. It's a way to activate your network so that now they think of you in a new geographical location, and they might think, oh, now that you're finally in San Francisco, I have somebody you should know who works in user experience research, and they can really let you know about the options in San Francisco for, joining the Bay Area chapter of the SIG Chi, the special interest group for the computer-human interactionists. And, that's a really great way to connect and meet other people. So it's really important to share these milestones, because people can have really great ideas of how you can make use of resources or people in a new area or in a new line of work. And then if you ever come across a resource that makes you think of somebody in your network, maybe you know that a contact of yours is very interested in how airline pilots and first officers communicate in the cockpit, and you just read about the article that came out last month. So send them that article. Like, this came out, I don't know if you've seen it or not, but it made me think of you. So I hope you like it. Or maybe you've heard that somebody else just got, a new position in user experience. I think that you should meet what this person, you should read what this person just wrote on Medium about their new job and user experience. So pass along resources, and that's how you can give back to your network, as well as sometimes asking for things from your network. So I do hope that you'll connect with me. And this is where we get into actually talking about things. And I'm going to just go back to a different version of my screen and see if anybody's put anything in the chat. And I don't see any questions. Yeah. May need to silence, if you haven't silenced your microphone, please. And please do ask questions. Tell me about some interests that you have in interests that you have in learning about, jobs in industry or in government, and we'll look them up together. So getting back to LinkedIn itself, we are going to talk a bit about my own profile. And this isn't because I have the best profile ever. This is not to say my profile is a model for everybody. In fact, I think as I talk through it, I'll be a little critical. But what I want to do is show some of my thought process in choices that I've made, choices that you could also think about as you go over your own profile. So maybe you have your own profile pulled up right now and you're kind of, or you're creating it right now, whatever stage you're in, that's just fine. But we'll talk about how you can look at different aspects of your profile and how people typically view different parts of a profile. So it'll start out kind of basic, but I then want to get into how we can use the other profiles on LinkedIn to get inspiration for language that we can use as well. So going through, starting at the very beginning, I want to start with the URL. And that's right up here. So you can see my URL has my name and my LinkedIn title, what I chose for my name, Alexandra Johnston, Ph.D. That is a choice I made to personalize my LinkedIn URL. And you can do that yourself. Instead of getting the random selection of name plus, 15 numbers and letters together, you can select to get your own personalized, cleaner URL. And then that makes it easier to give it to other people. Of course, you can also have a QR code that you show people, like if you're in a conference situation, QR code that goes straight to your profile. It's a really great way to interact during a conference. So that's something that I do. Perhaps you've done it yourself. You get a QR code and like keep it in your conference badge so you can just flip it around and have people go to a website of interest for you or for them. So personalize that URL if you can, and you'll find out how to do this through LinkedIn. And then first thing that people typically see is that picture, that photo. And, let's talk through this photo. It seems pretty okay. I mean, it's an all right photo. I hope it still kind of looks like me. I need to change it, but it's showing myself against a gray background. Do I have to get a professional headshot to be on LinkedIn? Do I have to pay for one? No. This is a headshot that my husband took against the wall of our garage. And he had me cover a piece of cardboard with aluminum foil so that I could hold it out to the side to act as a reflector. That's what a hobbyist photographer does when he's taking pictures of his wife. So you can find any kind of plain background and have any one of your colleagues take a quick photo and make it look real good. So you don't have to seek out an opportunity for a professional headshot, especially depending on the type of impression you want to give off and the type of audience that you're trying to reach out to. So, but be on the lookout. Some universities do offer free headshots for students or for faculty. And sometimes in libraries, they may even offer this on specific days, but there might be those chances. And it's always nice to take them and get somebody else to pose you. But doesn't have to be that difficult. Just make sure that you're showing yourself. You're not wearing sunglasses. I've, gone over LinkedIn with professional people who are, midway into their career and they're putting up a picture of themselves with like ski goggles and like, no, people need to see your face if you are going to show a photo. So just make sure that you're visible. Another thing that you'll notice about this headshot is, I think I'm looking pretty like corporate-y here. I have a blazer on, I have this pearl necklace. That was a deliberate choice because at the time I was shifting my profile to appeal to a pretty conservative corporate audience. My main clients at the time were in the biotechnology and agricultural and financial services spaces. So the people who were hiring me had, I believe, a certain image of a consultant, and they didn't want the consultant to look, just show up in a in a t-shirt. So, dressing the part of a consultant for those spaces based on who I saw around me, this was an outfit that I chose for that. Thinking about it now, it looks pretty formal. It might even look stuffy, especially in this post-pandemic era. And if I'm reaching out to a different audience now, and I might be because I'm shifting the use of my LinkedIn, I might retake this photo and have just a plain top or something that's less of a corporate vibe. So you have to think about the vibes. You have to think about, who am I reaching out to? And if you're in a graphic design field, I mean, this would not be good for a graphic design field. I don't look super creative here. So again, you're going to think kind of, where do you want to be in the future? Are you looking for a job in tech? Are you looking for a job in industry? What sector within industry? Are you looking to be in a more creative field like design or possibly user experience? Do you want to show a creative side of yourself? Do you want to show yourself with your, pink or purple hair? That's something that can help you to, weed out organizations where that might not be a good fit for you. If that's something that they care about, and you have pink or purple hair, which is completely legitimate as a style choice, perhaps you don't want to work in a place that is going to be kind of stuffy or oppressive. So think about that photo and make sure you have this banner photo. There's a default one that's plain, but select a banner photo that says something. In this case, this is a picture of the Kamo River Valley in Kyoto, very close to where I lived and where my homestay family still lives in Kyoto. So for me, it's very personal and meaningful. And it's also a nice photo of the scenery. And if people recognize it, so much the better. They might put it together if they go through my profile and see that I've lived in Japan, and they might think, oh, maybe that's a photo of Japan. So this can be something personal, or it can show something that you love. Perhaps it's a hobby, or perhaps it's some, different linguistic, like IPA symbols or different scripts, or a picture of a place where you like to go walking or hiking. This is where you can show some personality if you want. And then we haven't even gone that far here. And again, this is not about dwelling on me, but it's about giving you ideas for what you can do. So another thing that I've put here is pronunciation of my name. So here's the pronunciation. I hope you can hear it.
Alex Johnston.
All right. So Alex Johnston, that's what's in that recording. And that gives some information. It shows that even though I have my full name here, when I say it, I'm only saying Alex. So maybe that's how I like people to refer to me in person. And also there's, I heard a T in the last name, which is something that people often don't catch. So this is a way to help people with the pronunciation of your name. You can choose to add pronouns. You can choose to add other identifiers in this header. But then right below is where you have some creativity and where you want to put some thought. This is what is this called? It's a profile or header. I think it's part of the header, but this is what comes up when people search for your name. And so they'll see, if they search for you on a search engine, your name will pop up and then this header will pop up as well. So that's the first thing people will see. So you want to give some thought to, how are you going to identify yourself? What are going to be important aspects of your identity, either currently or perhaps aspirationally? So I've chosen 3 terms. For me, I wanted to use terms. I didn't want to put in a sentence. And I chose 3 that are important to me, at least in the consulting space. So I want people to know that I'm a linguist, even though people may not know what that is. As we know, when we tell people we're linguists, we get that question, how many languages do you speak? But for me, it's important to identify that way. And then secondly, it's important for me to identify as a consultant. to show that I'm open, that I have a business, that I'm open for new clients, and that I'm willing to, talk about that and market that. And then the final and most specific aspects of, identity or work here is executive coach. And that picks up an aspect of my consulting business where I specialize. So an executive coach is somebody who works one-on-one with people who are in leadership positions in corporate organizations and, has tailored and tailors their interactions with that executive or person in leadership position to help them achieve their goals, their relationship management goals or their leadership goals. So that's a key for people who are seeking that. And it'll come up as a keyword when people search for that on LinkedIn. And in fact, when I changed the header, several years ago, I think I had a different header, but then I shifted it out to executive coach. I did get inquiries. So it happens really quickly after you change your header. You might notice that different people are being recommended to you as people to connect with. You might notice that people reach out to you who haven't before. So this is something where you want to create a certain identity and select those that are most useful, most relevant. And that also may, if you're still in a student space, reflect where you want to go. So if you are a sociolinguist who is thinking about going into user experience research, that's an identity label that you could potentially put in your header. So it could be linguist and user experience researcher. If it's important, you might even put a physical location there. It depends. It depends what you want to receive, from the algorithm. And what we're doing with LinkedIn, especially as we're first getting into it, is training the algorithm to return results that we actually want. I think, just to start out, I feel like I want to stop sharing for just a bit because I want to see if I can see everybody. Maybe I can't do that right now because it's too tricky. But in the beginning, I think when people are setting up their profiles, it can be dispiriting because you might be suggested potential contacts who don't seem to be of interest to you at all. Or you might be suggested potential groups to connect with or posts to interact with that you think, I don't want to read another post about somebody who is thrilled to announce that they're got a user experience research job. This is why investing some time in getting to know this platform and understanding what it can do for you will pay off. So there's a bit of investment time in the beginning so that you can train the algorithm to start returning people of interest, positions of interest, organizations of interest, and so that you really start honing it to be what you want. And it also means that you screen out what you don't want. If you don't want to see people in certain positions or organizations, those are the people that you don't have to connect with and you don't have to interact with their posts. There was a point where I was getting a lot of marketing professionals who were asking to connect with me or was coming through, on my feed. And that was something that I tried at that point to limit because I wasn't seeking out people in that space. Nothing against marketing research professionals. That is actually an area where linguists can be of great use. And it can be a career path of great interest, especially if you have a specific area that you want to go into, like healthcare or, some sort of social issue, then it can be a very useful space. Anyway, we are still at the beginning of the profile. So getting more into it, this is where I would like you to, as we're talking, think about how you can self-identify here or how you can make that more succinct or, more diverse or even more specific. Think about what you're looking for and play around with that headline to see how that affects who is returned to you. And then let's see. We get information about people here. We get information about where they live, the connections they have. And if you seek out other people's profiles, you'll understand how you fit into their network because you'll have mutual connections who are highlighted. But then the next section that's very important is your about section. And this is something that you really need to spend some time on and write and rewrite and think about how you want to portray yourself here. And you'll use LinkedIn to get some ideas for language to use here. If you don't know what is the language that is going to be picked up on by marketing research professionals, or by user experience research professionals, or by people who are doing applied research in industry, this is where you'll get suggestions from reading other people's profiles who are in that area of interest. So let's see how I chose to do this. Thought leader. Thought leader in career management for social science and humanities academics who transition to industry. That's the first sentence. Thought leader. I'm sure some of you might have some opinions about this word. Many people in academia do. So when I've had colleagues look at this, they're kind of like, thought leader, think highly of yourself, do you? This is a term that is quite often used in the corporate space in the US. And when I was developing this profile to, appeal to different clients that I already had and to get new clients, that was a key word that people would use in their own profiles and that they would kind of recognize. So it's something that even if you wouldn't necessarily think to claim it for yourself, sometimes you have to claim an identity in the way that speaks to a potential audience. And this is a term that bridges, the corporate world. So I selected that. And it does show my focus currently, that it's career management for people in academia who are transitioning, postgraduate into postgraduate careers outside of academia. And then going on to say 15 plus years as a global talent development expert focused on professional development and leadership training in corporate biotech, ag, and financial services space. Okay, so this is giving an identity as a consultant and as an external vendor who is available for hire for these different organizations, especially in those spaces. And it gives a sense of my experience there. So for me, that was important to focus on because it would hint to potential clients that, oh, okay, so she may have, this type of educational experience, but she does have this consultancy experience. And I can kind of see that she's worked with these different clients. And she's using the term space, which we don't use in academia necessarily. I don't know. If I could see you, I would ask for a survey of hands to see if that's a term that you use in your own academic life or that you use in Great Britain. It's something that's used in the US corporate world. And so it signals something to that audience that this is a person who has been around that space and is using it in kind of an in-group way. So I've shifted this deictic reference point. I've shifted into using the language of the audience that I want to speak with. So as linguists, we have that as a superpower. We're able to, pick up on language and keywords of importance to our audience and do some audience design. This is where you will engage those skills you have in audience design and thinking about the audiences that you want to appeal to as more of an insider. And you do that by adopting some of the keywords and language that that audience uses so that they can recognize you as a fellow in-group member. There are certain other experiences that I talk about here, and I claim that it's extensive. Okay, extensive experience in international educational exchange and nonprofit leadership. All right, so that gives people who are in the nonprofit sector an idea that I've been there too. And then I go into more of the academic background, that first part of my header, where I claim I'm a sociolinguist and discourse analyst with a focus on intercultural comm. Okay, this is where the viewer has to make a choice. Will I click more? So many people don't, which is why you want to maximize what people see in these first 4 lines, however many characters this is. So select the most important part of your about statement, of your identity claims, then put them right there so that a casual viewer doesn't have to click more to learn a lot. But if somebody's interested in you, they typically do click more, and you can take as much space as you want. Whatever happens after this see more is, between you and that viewer who chose to click. Not much else here. There's some keywords that I listed. Some people have far more extensive about sections, and they can be wonderful narratives of personal experience. They can be ways to appeal to many different audiences at once. So what I recommend to you is to click around and to find people who have different ways of identifying themselves. So we're going to look quickly at Cindy Blanco. Cindy is, and she has PhD in her name as well. We can see she's a deputy editor. We don't know where just yet, unless we can recognize this thing that she's holding. And we also see where she works physically and her experience. So maybe she's a deputy editor at Duolingo. Let's check out Cindy Blanco. Okay, so in her background, in her banner photo, she does have a picture of herself giving a talk at a conference, we can imagine, and it has the ever so recognizable Duo owl in the back, and it's describing Duolingo to the audience. So great, she is, thought leader at Duolingo. So let's see what she writes about herself in the About section. Language scientist, focusing on language learning through technology. Okay, this is key. She's not saying I'm a linguist who studied at such and such. She's saying she's a language scientist. And this can be one of those alternative ways to refer to your expertise as a linguist without saying you're a linguist and reaching that, communication impasse that sometimes happens when people don't understand what a linguist is or does. So this is something that you can use for yourself. This is a way that, you're reading other people's profiles, you're seeing how they're self-referencing, and you can think, can I call myself a language scientist at the point where I am? I mean, if you're an advanced PhD student, you have far more experience as a language scientist than anyone who has, never even touched a linguistics class. So it's also, once you start honing in on this keyword and you search for it, you'll find other people who refer to themselves as language scientists. You'll find positions that are titled language scientist. And this is very important. You're not going to find a lot of positions that are titled as linguist. And if you do, you'll find that they refer to very specialized areas of linguistics. In the government, in the US government, a linguist is somebody who speaks English plus another language. In a company like Google, a linguist is somebody who can code and who can, work with large language models and query databases and has a lot of computational experience or statistical experience. So linguist has very different meanings in different sectors, but language scientist is something that you can look up and find people talking about and using. So going further in Cindy's About section, experience teaching and conducting research in industry, academia, and the classroom. That is a great way to talk about yourself as a teacher and showing the different domains where she has somehow taught. So in industry, that could mean that she's given trainings, professional development trainings. That's a way that you can teach outside of academia. If teaching is something that you love, you can absolutely do that outside of academia in many, many industry contexts, because in industry, people are always, they still learn and they need people to teach them. So I'm saying that to give hope to people who love aspects of teaching and being in the classroom and feel like it's something that you may be giving up if you're seeking a postgraduate position outside of academia. And the nice thing is too, is when you're teaching, in an industry context, you're, training people to use certain products or services, or you're training them in a new process or protocol, you don't have to evaluate, you don't have to grade them. So often grading is, well, if you've worked as a teaching assistant or a faculty member. So she has taught and trained in a range of experimental and statistical methods. So this is great. It gives a sense of the breadth of her toolkit. She does experimental methods, she does statistical methods, and then she actively applies research to language teaching and the development of new products. Versatile communicator who regularly engages with broad audiences, including the media, about, and make note of how she's talking about herself. This is something, being a versatile communicator, that we often downplay in academia, because everybody around us is a pretty versatile communicator. They're pretty skilled at oral communication or in writing. I mean, we have to be if we are going to be teaching, if we're going to be presenting, and if we're going to be publishing. So we tend to take it for granted that we can communicate with people. But this is actually the most highly sought after skill by employers. 90% of employers seek people who are good communicators. And this is something that cannot be taught in industry. Employers don't want to teach you how to be a good communicator. So if you claim that you are, an employer will likely take it at face value on a resume or in an about section, and then sort of test it if you get an in-person opportunity for, say, a job interview. That's when you can really show off your versatile skills. But it's something that you can claim on, somewhere in your LinkedIn profile, and it's legitimate to say that and to be explicit about your good oral or written communication skills, and to show that you can communicate with broad and diverse audiences. So this is very key that Cindy says this, because another thing in industry that people are looking for are people who can communicate complex topics and processes to people who don't know them yet. So being able to break down complex theoretical or research-based knowledge into bite-sized chunks, into understandable steps, that is something that academics are pretty good at doing already. And it's something to showcase and to claim for yourself, because again, we're used to it because we're surrounded by people who do that all the time. But that's not the case outside our academic world. And it's something that employers can't teach you. They would far rather teach you how to use a stats package or how to use their own proprietary dashboards or protocols than teach you how to be a communicator. They can't do that quickly on the job. I mean, they can try, but it's a long-term investment. But they can far more quickly train you up in different discrete skill sets. So saying these things about yourself that seem obvious or seem so habituated that you don't even notice it is actually something that is very useful to do in a profile that will be viewed by people from many, many different sectors, including, in Cindy's case, the media. She gets media outreach. So it's good for media to know, like, oh, she knows how to talk with us. And then we get this chance to see more. And there's not that much more, but she talks about language and research, and she's passionate about providing and enhancing access to language learning through digital media. And note that she's not talking specifically about Duolingo here. This is more of a broad overview of her skill set. And it doesn't limit her to just this particular product, Duolingo. It shows that she can, apply this in the entire sector, which is the sector of educational technology. So that's another term. If you don't know already, that is the sector where people, engage in digital learning and teaching. So using that as a term, you could search for people who also use that term and see who comes up. Who else is doing work in educational technology? And what does that mean? Is it only Duolingo or Mango or Rosetta Stone? Or does that encompass other aspects of work? Say I don't want to work for a digital language learning app? What other opportunities are there in the educational technology field? This is something we can follow up on if you have an interest in doing that. And then what I'd recommend as you do your research, if you're looking at a person like Cindy's, profile, see her trajectory, see where she started and where she is now. So deputy editor of learning content is a quite advanced role in this company because she's been there for a while. So senior learning scientist started in 2024. She has more experiences, which go all the way back to beginning as a learning scientist 7 years ago. And it gives us this clue too, that we can use learning scientist as a keyword to search for a position like this. So we're not going to be looking for, linguist at Duolingo. We would be looking for this position title of learning scientist at this organization and perhaps others. So this is something to look up. And then you can see what she did in her different jobs. So she provides a lot of detail about her position as senior learning scientist, and it's quite approachable. She has divided her accomplishments into 3 sections: science communication. And this is something that you can also think about that you do already. You do science communication. You might even do linguistics communication. Gretchen McCulloch has if you know her, she is one of the 2 podcasters of the podcast Linguist, along with Lauren Goan in Australia. And Gretchen is a linguist who has made a career out of being an internet linguist. And she has tried to make the term lingcom be at the level of SciComm. So meaning a person who brings linguistic research to, broad and diverse audiences and shows the importance of linguistic research in all facets of life. So this is a really important key term too. If you have ever, delivered a class to an undergraduate, if you delivered an undergraduate class, you've engaged in science communication, you've engaged in linguistics communication, because you're breaking down a lot of complex research to a general audience, which undergraduates are a general audience. And so then we can see that she's taking this very warm and approachable tone. The only thing I love more than language is getting others to learn language too. So I write about language science, and language learning for Duolingo's blog. And if you have that app on your phone right now, you can go into it and find those blog posts in Duolingo written by Cindy. And she's also the person behind producing those learning posts. And then you can see not only is that one bucket of her skill set, but language product development is another bucket. This is actually what she does in terms of making the product Duolingo more, improving it and reaching new audiences and fixing it. And then she also does data analysis. So she's looking at data on users, and she does that for different stakeholders, both in-house with people who work in Duolingo, and then also for journalists and media and for research. So this is why LinkedIn is so useful, because you can see people writing about their positions using language that you can pick up and then adapt or adopt for your own use. And it's not plagiarism, it's not copying, it's not trying to be somebody you're not. It is seeking out terms that have connotations and meanings in different sectors so that you can communicate easily. And so you can show yourself to be more of an in-group member. So that's Cindy. She has a fantastic profile, and you can, keep learning more about her in terms of, her skills or her education. She has all these educational experiences that you can track. And you can also see, if you care to, who has, recommended her. Not really. That's not a big deal. There's also endorsements. I'm asked a lot, should we care about endorsements? I don't think they're as important as how you write about your experience and your skills. Um, so let's see. I think I'm going to somehow attempt to stop sharing and just check in for a bit and see if anybody here wants to raise a hand or put a comment in the chat about something that you're interested in. So since we're an intimate group here right now, we can talk about your own specific interests. Like if you want to learn more about educational technology, we can do that. We can also look at jobs in user experience research, in tech, in nonprofits, or in specific, mission-based, values-based organizations. So I would love for somebody to take a chance and tell me what you would like to learn more about. And I'll give it a few seconds of wait time. And I'm very comfortable with silence. Okay, I'll give you more time to think about it. And if you come up with a question, please put it in the chat. Nivena, do you have any questions or interests that you might want to share? I'm happy to, use your experience or curiosity as a jumping off point, and I can also continue.
Yeah, no, absolutely. First of all, thank you so much. This was a really useful talk. As someone who is interested in a career outside of academia, I'm taking notes on how to make my LinkedIn work better. I guess I don't know if you can answer this question, but I mean, I think a lot of us, when we consider a career outside of industry, outside of academia, we wonder how to network outside of academia, where it's really straightforward. You go to conferences, workshops, and you meet people. But if you want to make that jump, that transition, and it's hard because there's not like really a venue where you can do that, and LinkedIn is always mentioned as a place where you can do that. But it feels a bit weird if you don't know someone personally. What do you do? Like, do you just send them a message? What do you say? So if you can say anything about that, that would be useful.
Yes, perfect. Thank you so much for asking that. So first of all, I have a number of ways to answer this, which is, part of it is that LinkedIn is not necessarily used by academics to the extent that it could be. So it really varies on whether people you meet at conferences, at an academic conference, have a LinkedIn profile or not. I know a number of academics who have fantastic profiles and who keep that up because they want to network outside of their circles, and they want to network also with people in academia who have fantastic experiences to share. And I have known of academics who have found, people to collaborate with over LinkedIn, and it's just a different venue rather than sending an email to somebody that you might have met at a conference. It feels a bit more approachable and easy, I feel, to reach out on LinkedIn. So first, let's imagine you were at an academic conference and you met some people there. You could, or say that you were talking with a lot of people and you may have missed asking them something, or you may have forgotten something important to say in the moment. LinkedIn can be your friend in that case. You can try looking up those academics on LinkedIn, see if they have a profile, and then send them a message to connect. And in that message, it's necessarily going to be very, very short. So it would be something quick and easy and informal to say, hi, Dr. So-and-so, or hi, so-and-so. It was great meeting you at, the ACL or at the Sociolinguistic Symposium in Ghent. I would love to connect and follow your work here. Can be just as quick as that, because once somebody gets your invitation to connect and reads that message, they'll likely look at your profile and kind of remember who you were and learn more about your background too. So they'll have that chance. You don't have to say so many things about yourself because that is all stashed away and curated in your profile. You can also look at, start looking as you build your network, see who is connected to people in your network. So that's often a way to find people of interest to connect with. And it can be quite easy if you have that bridge person, you know, so if I'm connected with, you know, Greg Bennett, who is he trained as an applied linguist and is currently a director of conversation design in an organization in Tokyo, I might look through Greg's contacts and see who else is working in conversation design, who else is, you know, part of Greg's network of conversation designers, but located in San Francisco. So I can search Greg's contacts that way, and I could find that person who is in conversation design in San Francisco, send a message to connect and say, hi, you know, I'm moving to the Bay Area and looking for people who are in conversation design in that area. I'd love to connect. So it can be quite informal and brief, again, because the work of the introduction is your own profile that you've been polishing up. So I'll give some other examples of messages that you can send, but I see a quite long message in the chat that I'm curious about. And let's see. Nice. So currently looking for a part-time job where I can expand my skills as a linguist and earn some extra money without it being very demanding. My problem is that I always feel I'm limited to being a teacher, translator, interpreter, or even a transcriber. I'm a quick learner, detail-oriented, based in London. So I feel lost, although I feel I must be able to find something beyond that. Any tips or suggestions that could be eye-opening? Yeah, thank you so much for that introduction. And, you know, remote contract work is something that we can all get involved in. And, you know, the first thing that I actually thought of is the company Mother Tongue, which is a feeder company to Google. Mother Tongue is a company that focuses on quality assurance of large language models. And I have known a number of graduate students at the master's and doctoral level who have gotten contract jobs there as quality assurance, in quality assurance. And what they tend to do is to review the output of large language models and act as the human in the room who makes acceptability judgments and quality judgments about that output, and then relays, you know, the needed tweaks and changes to a development team that will then work on the development part of it. And Mother Tongue does have a physical location in London. And there's also in London often a voice interface conference that takes place that I've had a number of students go to. I think it's just called Voice AI. I'll look up the name of it and get back to you. But I've had several students from Georgetown who have traveled to London to attend the conferences in voice, user interface, and also to that office for Mother Tongue. So I would look that up first, and it might seem like meh. I mean, it's definitely not teaching, and it's not interpreting or transcribing. It's a way, actually, it's a bridge to get into tech through this remote contract work. And it served that purpose for a number of my students who were in sociolinguistics and who weren't coders, they weren't computational linguists, and yet they had a job doing work for this organization that was tech adjacent. Most jobs in tech, well, should I even put a qualifier there? Many jobs in tech are open to linguists who do not code, and you don't need to learn how to code. So it's kind of a misapprehension that to have a job in tech, you need to learn Python or you need to learn SQL. you don't. There are many ways to get into tech and into very, interesting positions without coding. Another area is prompt engineering. Again, that's working with large language models by developing the types of prompts and responses to prompts, which is the way that you interact with those large language models. If you've ever worked with ChatGPT-4, whatever you input to get it to do its work for you is a prompt. And that's an area of tech where people can find entry level positions. So that's useful as a position title to know about, prompt engineer or quality assurance. And that's open to quite a large array of linguists, no matter what the background is. So I might start there. And other opportunities like London and Northern Europe have a really great critical mass of conversation designers who form a network of designers who meet, like monthly for what's called Voice Lunch, and who have meetups and their own conference and their own, virtual network that they're very connected to. So one of the leaders of that group, and since I'm not sharing, I'm quickly going to move away and go to LinkedIn and find the person who I'm thinking of, Micah, and get to her profile. And I can share this also, but I'll put this in the chat for now. I would say Micah is one of the unofficial leaders of voice in Northern Europe, and conversation design is an area that is not so much of a stretch for people who have sociolinguistic background to move into, because that is how people create chatbots and interfaces, and people who are conversation designers use software that helps them to map out the flow of interaction between humans and chatbots and robots. So people who have taken courses in, pragmatics or discourse analysis, conversation, have experience in those underlying patterns of conversation about what makes a naturalistic conversation, what is, a typical turn-taking sequence, what are some adjacency pairs of question answers that should be part of a prompt tree. And in addition, sociolinguists are very good, and linguists in general are good about thinking about personae and about audience design. So that's another aspect of developing a chatbot, where you have to create a persona and create a tone for that interaction. Are you going to have a chatbot that says, hello, Alexandra, nice to meet you? Or are you going to have a robot that says, hi, Alexandra, how can I help you? You can get different tones and different persona developed as a linguist in this field. So there are a number of ways that you can get involved in tech and without having to code. And I'm going to send you a couple of very important resources. I would love for you to look into them. One is, there are two things I'm going to show to you. First is a podcast, and it's called linguisticscareercast.com. And that is the production of a group that I'm associated with within the Linguistic Society of America. So we have a group, a SIG in that group, which is the Linguistics Beyond Academia Special Interest Group. And I've been one of the co-leaders for the past 6 years. And that group has created a boot camp for linguists seeking postgraduate careers outside of academia. And we've held that boot camp 3 times, where we've had a very intensive, either 2 or 4 week program of linguistics career panels, of workshops, of career management presentations. And we've gathered, over 100 linguists working outside of academia to be part of our panels and be part of our interviews. And we've made those into recordings that we have then put on our YouTube channel. So this is the second resource that I'm going to give to you, which is the Linguistics Career Launch YouTube channel, which has a number of, maybe we're approaching 100 videos at this point. People talking, linguists in all sectors talking about their work. And so those have been the recordings that we have, edited and captioned and, corrected captions for, so they're accessible. And you can find linguists who are working in almost any career area in business, government, nonprofit, and tech. And there's one video that I might recommend for anybody who is kind of curious about tech, but maybe a little concerned that you don't have the skill set that people in tech are looking for. So I'm going to put the link to that video here because I think it's a great introductory video about, what kind of skills you can have in tech. Actually, why don't I share my screen so I can show you this list of different types of screen. Chrome. So this is our list of videos, and what we've done here has been to curate them into playlists. So you can see, like, just looking into, jobs in tech, technical development, finding your career path, effective resumes, leveraging LinkedIn. Wow, that sounds familiar. Was I on that? I think I was. And then natural language processing, storytelling, and strategy with Caitlin Tagarelli right there, who is that's Hannah Sullivan. She was working in a language strategy organization in New York called Miss Landscape Partners. Careers in government, if you're interested in that, even though our governments are going crazy. Sorry, this is being recorded. What I'm trying to, getting your first job beyond academia is quite interesting. But what I'm trying to see is in the playlist that is focused on tech. Let's see. These are the workshops. So perhaps in the panels, that's where we might find. Well, anyway, I'll let you look through these. In addition, I'd love you to check out these different podcasts that we have. These are great to listen to as you are washing up, house cleaning, taking a walk or a hike. These are interviews with linguists who work all over the place. And for example, Christopher Farina is somebody who works in Vibe Labs. He's also worked in Verilog, which are two companies that are business-to-business companies that analyze interaction between patients and healthcare providers in order to provide insights to different companies about answering different research questions that they have. And you can see there are some keywords for every podcast. And you can find linguists working. This is an interview with a forensic linguist who is a lawyer and works in a law school and talks about forensic linguistics and how to socialize students to law school. You'll find almost anything here. But the one that I was hoping to recommend to you about careers in tech
You're still
You wanted
muted.
to stop sharing, and then by mistake you
Yeah.
been there, done that.
You're still muted at the moment.
Sorry. Comic relief, just as you predicted, Gianluca, I ended up doing that. So what I'll put in the chat is a recommendation for a video featuring Kelsey Krause in the YouTube channel about a survey of tech careers and how much coding you have to know for every type of tech career. But it really is a survey of human language technology, or HLT. So that actually might be the keyword for that video, is careers in human language technology. And that's another great thing to seek for on LinkedIn. So at this point, we could continue some questions and answers, or I could point out ways to search for people and learn about people on LinkedIn. It's however you would like to use the last few minutes, whatever the remaining 9 people would like to do.
I think if anyone has any questions, please do raise your hand, speak, send a message. But if everyone is shy, I think you can definitely share some more information about how to look people up, because that was another question I had. So that's great.
Okay. Happy to do that really quickly, and hope it is not boring for you. So let me go back to the tab that has LinkedIn, and I do appreciate that you put in the chat how Cindy had some great resources on her profile. So that's a great thing. You know, many profiles can be a source of excellent resources. So let's see. Perhaps I would, want to look for somebody who is working in taxonomy. This is something that is very relevant to people who've had a lot of formal linguistics training. So taxonomy is a type of position. So I could look up taxonomy in, among my network, and I would find somebody like Anthony Koth. And for Anthony, we can see that he's had positions in taxonomy. And there's actually not a lot here. He's not really describing his work in those positions, but it can give us an idea about what organizations might be seeking taxonomists. We could also look taxonomist, linguist, see what other linguists might be working in this area just by putting in some keywords. And we can focus on people who are in our first degree of connection, which is our current network. And that's great, but we probably know our current network pretty well. So we may want to, in fact, move on to people who are in a second degree of connection. So people who are connected to our connections. And those will be people we don't know who have knowledge we don't have. So those are people who are really great to explore. So I can see Chloe Donnelly has connections with one of my former students and says that she's a linguist, writer, and editor. I might choose to look at her profile and see where taxonomy fits in. Language specialist. Okay, she's listing a lot of keywords here. Taxonomy development, taxonomy management. That's very cool. And I can see where she's worked. Wow, at LinkedIn as a taxonomy analyst. So if you don't know taxonomy, that is just, we're making use of it as we seek keywords. And anytime you seek a product on a website like Amazon or other websites, the type of things that we're seeking and the types of suggested products are all the result of the back-end work that taxonomists have done to organize buckets of information and relate them together. So taxonomists help to make searching easier, more user-friendly for people. And we can also see that this person had a contract position as a taxonomist via this other organization, Magnet. And that's kind of useful to know, because if you like the commenter in our chat today, if you're looking for something that's not too much of a heavy lift, is perhaps a few hours of contract work, this might be something that you could consider, because as linguists, we're pretty good at organizing large amounts of unstructured data. Keep that in mind. Large amounts of unstructured data, we know how to find patterns, we know how to organize it, and we know how to group it, and how to define the levels of organization. So for people who might be interested in contract work, this could be something you could follow up on. Look up this company Magnet, see if they're hiring for taxonomists, and follow that up. So that can be a way to search for positions or search for people. If you're interested in kind of like, conversation design, you'll be able to pull up different companies. But if you want to, find people in your network who do this, you would confine it to people, or you could look for posts in this area, jobs in this area, and use that. Okay, here's a person who's like collecting people's handles in order to make a starter pack on Blue Sky. So this is what people used to do on Twitter. X is to put together a group of people who are thought leaders or interested in different content areas, and sort of have that as a starter pack of people to follow and learn about and see what they're posting. So I could seek by people who are doing conversation design. I'm getting a lot of second degree connections, which is great. So this is an interesting combination of user experience and space, located in Southern California. That might be interesting for me to connect with a student I have who is looking for jobs in that area. They're also connected to a lot of people that I know who are very experienced in user experience. You just want to be open to learning and kind of noodle around with a purpose. So you're not just floating around. You have some ideas in your mind about, I'm looking for language. I'm looking for how people describe themselves. I'm seeing how they portray themselves. This person is working at the intersection of language design, technology, and business. Wow, that's a great way to define yourself. If you have a lot of interests, or if you want to be in a certain area, that's how you can lead, by talking about yourself. And this is how this person describes, AI and what they do within that. So as a design leader, I work with clients. Okay, so this is a client-facing position. And, de-risk it. That's interesting. I just love seeing how people use language differently. So de-risk, that's a term. That's a term that maybe you could pick up. Seems to be, look it up in other people's profiles. Are people using the term de-risk? That can be something that will prick up people's ears who are seeking people who are problem solvers to work in their organization. Yeah, so this can also be like very personal too. Like, this person hates tomatoes in their salad. That's a lot. Anyway, so start just looking at people's profiles to see what they say and see where they've been. This person is a senior conversation designer in Austin. And so if they're senior, that means they've had a history of, positions in that area. They've also done user experience and engagement, user engagement touch points. Pay attention to these keywords, developing a cohesive brand and messaging experience. And you can keep going back. You can see where they started. So they were in advertising and not necessarily in linguistics, or were they, but in education. I mean, there's not other educational experiences here. Keep doing this. Dedicate some time, I would say. Take time to interact with the algorithm so that you can start connecting with people virtually. And if you feel like a bit concerned about reaching out to someone kind of cold without a bridge person, I mean, I would recommend first that you go to a connection of a connection, because that's immediately something that people will see if you're interacting with their profile. Oh, this person sent me an invitation to connect. Oh, our mutual connection is Greg Bennett. Oh, I know and love Greg. I'm happy to accept a connection from this person. So using that network to just go 1 degree out from your current network is a way to start. LinkedIn, the free version restricts your number of invitations for people like beyond 2nd degree connections per month or something like that. So if you do want to connect with somebody who, there isn't a bridge person between you, you may want to provide a bit more of an introduction, like, I'm finishing my degree in linguistics and trying to learn more about the educational technology space. So I've followed your posts and find them very helpful. So you can combine a brief statement about yourself with something you found useful about their interaction on the platform. And that can be enough for somebody to want to accept that invitation, pull you into their network. So I hope you're excited about looking ahead to polishing your LinkedIn profile, about playing with the language, about thinking about the identities that you give and give off, and about using new language within that profile, just testing out how different words feel to describe yourself. And then, train the algorithm. Show it what you like. Show that you are seeking people in, industrial ethnography. Like, that's a great way for socio and applied linguists to work in industries, to be like corporate ethnographers. Ethnography is also very big in user experience. So if you want to, connect with people who use ethnographic field methods outside of academia, that's something you can search for and connect with, and it'll teach the algorithm to send those people your way too. So, it's like a toddler. It's doesn't know how to socialize yet with you. This LinkedIn algorithm, you have to kind of teach it gently and reward it when it does good things for you by interacting, and then kind of ignore the other stuff that you don't want to see or deal with. So I hope this is making you excited about using it, and feel free to connect with me if you care to. And happy to answer any other questions, whether on this platform or through a LinkedIn message.
Thank you so much, Alex. This was really, really good, really, really useful. You were a great speaker, and I hope everyone enjoyed it as much as I did, for sure. So thank you so much. I will just send in the link and information about our next talk, which will be on the 13th of March, and we will have some guest speakers. So actual linguists who have found a job in the industry. So they are real and we can hear their experience. So if there are no further questions, thank you so much. Have a lovely day, evening, and we'll be in touch for sure.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to meet you, and I appreciate you coming today. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye. Okay, so now I'll leave and it'll be for real. I can't believe I did exactly what you mentioned I would